Heat waves are described as the silent killer. In Western Australia, heat waves have been responsible for more deaths than other high-profile natural hazards, such as bushfires. To understand heat waves, we approached two key agencies for their expertise, the Department of Health and the Bureau of Meteorology. Firstly, Neil Bennett from the Bureau.
Heat waves historically have been pegged by looking at a particular set of numbers over a period of time. So we used to say if there were 3 days over a certain threshold, that would constitute a heat wave. But the difficulty with that approach is that you are locked into a particular location and using a specific number for that particular location. So if we were to say 37 degrees for Perth, for example, that would be meaningless for places like Karratha, Port Hedland, Newman, Marble Bar, which traditionally in the summer are getting long runs of 40 degrees or more. So what the Bureau now uses is a methodology that looks at what the temperature is at the moment compared to the long-term average for the particular time of the year, and also looking at how that temperature has gone up or down compared to an average running up to that period of time. So we're looking at the long-term average, and we're also looking at the short-term 1 week, 2 week period, because what we try to work into our system now is how the body can adapt to an excess of heat. We're also looking at nighttime temperatures as well. It's a combination of the daytime and nighttime temperatures that are really the critical factors here. As you go into night, the body will start to cool down, but if you have very hot temperatures overnight, the body doesn't cool down as well as it would do for a cool night, and you then add in another hot day, which is abnormally hot compared to the long-term average, and something that you haven't experienced leading up to the event. When we're looking at our temperatures, we tend to concentrate on that number. Perth was 37 today, or Marble Bar was 45, or whatever it is. But we need to look into the humidity as well. The humidity is a really major factor in how the body can cool down, and water vapour, which is the amount of water that the atmosphere holds, will change according to temperatures. The frequency of heat waves is really difficult to work out on a yearly basis. It really is dependent on the weather patterns, and the weather patterns will drive whether you have a heat wave or not. We are able, though, to look at certain climate drivers, as we call them, such as El Nino. That does tend to lead to heat waves becoming more frequent, simply because we've got higher temperatures being built up over the continent as a result of a lack of rainfall, particularly so in eastern Australia, but it does have an impact in our northern parts of WA, where we can get some very hot temperatures up there. We also can see a lack of rainfall out of El Nino years. That has a tendency to dry the soil out, and very high soil temperatures can also have an impact to the heat budget that we've got going on. The vast area of WA means that we've got a huge shift in climate zones. So from the northern parts of the Kimberley into the northeastern Kimberley, tropical rainfall, and you're looking at very moist conditions there. And then you come to the Pilbara and the Gascoyne, and you can see temperatures in summer getting up to 47, 48 degrees. When you come down to the temperate southwest, a temperature of 41 or 42 is going to be very hot. The thing that we're looking at is whether the heat that you're experiencing is abnormal to that part of the world that you're living in. So if you've had a run of 40-degree days in the Pilbara, and then all of a sudden you really crank it up and you go to 47, 48, or even 49 degrees, that will be a heat wave for you, because you're going to get the very high nighttime temperatures as well. Down in the south, the temperatures need not necessarily be as high, but if you've been experiencing temperatures of around 28, 29 for the Albany area, for example, and then all of a sudden you run into temperatures of 37, 38 for a period of time, again with high nighttime temperatures, you've got a heat wave down in there. So there's not one area that's susceptible. The other thing that we have to be conscious of as well is the movement of people in and out of regions. So if you have a high tourist population coming into a region who are not used to the heat, they're going to start to suffer. You have your FIFO populations as well. So those considerations have to be taken into account of as well.
To learn more about heat waves, we visited the Department of Health's Operations Centre and spoke to heatwave expert Tony Spicer, who began by describing how heatwave affects the human body.
The body normally maintains a temperature of 37 degrees, and when it's exposed to hotter weather, it sweats using water and salts to maintain that temperature at 37 degrees. When they're exposed to some extreme hot weather, the body sometimes finds it hard to maintain the temperature of 37 degrees. And when there's excessive sweating, this may lead to symptoms such as cramping, exhaustion, fatigue, dizziness, headaches, which are signs of heat stress. Heat stress can sometimes progress to heat exhaustion, and an extreme example is heat stroke. This is where the body's skin no longer sweats, it is dry and hot, and the person may have an altered conscious state or be in a coma. This is a medical emergency. The most vulnerable groups to heatwave include the elderly and frail, young children and infants, pregnant women, outdoor workers and athletes, overseas visitors as they are unacclimatised to conditions, and people that live in suboptimal housing or live alone. There are also environmental health issues that we must consider, including increased risk of mosquito-borne diseases, food safety due to higher temperatures and the risk of food spoiling, as well as water and pool safety, as temperatures above 30 degrees in water are at increased risk of infection, including amoebic meningitis. People taking medications, whether they're prescribed or illicit, may also be at risk in the heat, as some medications do inhibit thermoregulation or block the message to the brain. With transport, excess heat can sometimes prevent trains from running. We saw well-documented cases during the 2009 heat wave in Victoria where train lines were buckling. Heat waves can also cause a large demand on our electricity grid, particularly where people get home from work and turn their air conditioners on. The demand can sometimes outstrip the supply of electricity, and this can lead to issues such as load shedding, where parts of the network having to be turned off to preserve the integrity of the grid. Water supply is also critical during a heat wave. If the electricity is lost, this can sometimes lead to loss of water, and this will then affect people's ability to cool themselves during extreme heat conditions. Economically, livestock and crops may be at risk of perishing during extreme heat. Heat waves can also have an effect on tourism, as people are unacclimatised to the extreme heat, and the extreme heat may also drive tourists away. Heat waves are also associated with large degrees of absenteeism in the workforce as well, and this may have economic effects. As a Department of Health, we are the hazard management agency for heat waves. During a heat wave event, we are responsible for coordination of the incident. This may include distribution of public health messaging, responding to emergent issues, and liaising with our key partners in response to issues that may arise. We also liaise a lot with our partner agencies. This includes the Bureau of Meteorology, who are in essence our eyes and ears, who are able to forecast when a heatwave is going to occur, as well as tell us the observations of the heatwave. We also rely heavily on local government to make sure that they can pass on messages out to the vulnerable groups within their community, as well as provide things like cool areas where people can get respite from the heat. We also liaise a lot with our key lifeline agencies too, including Western Power or Horizon Power and the Water Corporation. And we also liaise a lot with the Department of Fire and Emergency Services and the Department of Parks and Wildlife, as inevitably heatwaves usually coincide with catastrophic fire conditions. Local governments play a critical role in heatwaves. They help identify vulnerable groups within their community and provide cooling areas where people can get respite from the heat. They have a role in asset management and business continuity for critical services which are provided. Environmental health officers play a critical role, particularly in relation to food and pool safety. They also help communicate public health advice out to the community. They also play a critical role in ensuring that sports and special events that occur within their community are well catered for. They provide a key role in assessing and providing support to sports and local events that may coincide with extreme heat, as well as ensuring public health messaging is provided out to the community. They also have a workplace health and safety responsibility to make sure that any outdoor activities that take place during extreme heat are well catered for.
I don't think it's a surprise for people to recognise that we're in a drying and a warming climate. We've seen the drying of the winter months and we're seeing a warming in our summer months, and that looks like that's going to continue. The impact that that has is it starts to shift your average temperature further up. We're starting to see an increase in our average temperatures. If we see an increase in our average temperatures, we're starting to see an increase in our extreme temperatures as well. What we're not sure of is just how many heat waves we're going to see, but predictions are suggesting that the frequency of them will change as we move forward, and the intensity. If you start to think that we have high temperatures into the low to mid 40s for Perth, for example, we could start to see temperatures becoming more frequent going forward in 20 to 30 years, around the mid 40s up to maybe 46s, 47s. That starts to break temperature records that we've got now. But if you move the average up, you're going to move the extremes up as well, and that's what the predictions are telling us. So we are expecting that as we move forward, we're going to see an increase in the frequency and potentially an increase in the intensity of heat waves as well.
2014 was the hottest year on record for Western Australia, and for Perth alone, 2015 was the equal hottest year on record, and the last 5 years are amongst the top 10 hottest years on record for Perth. Climate change is also a big factor. It's expected to increase the frequency, duration and intensity of extreme heat events, and leading to a doubling of heatwave related deaths over the next 40 years. The other factor in this perfect storm is the ageing population. In the next 40 years, we're expecting to see a doubling of the number of people aged 65 years and over.
I think the key message for us is to say that whilst we live in a very hot climate, there are going to be periods in that hot summer where the heat is going to be excessive. And there is a community attitude, hey, this is summer, this is WA, it gets hot, I don't need to worry about this. Yes, we do. It's been shown countless times that heat waves cause more deaths than any other natural hazard, including tropical cyclones, including floods. So heat waves are correctly termed the silent killer. And if you don't take the proper precautions and if you don't look after people, then things can go downhill very, very quickly.